So, to kind of wrap things up,
Okay.
how do you think education can really empower people to think for themselves?
Ooh, that's a big one. I mean, there's so many ways to approach it,
Right.
but I think one of the keys is
Yeah.
creating a learning environment
Okay.
that really encourages like
Hmm.
curiosity,
Yeah,
questions,
yeah.
and exploration.
So, like moving away from just rote memorization.
Exactly. Yeah, we need to move towards a model where it's not just memorizing facts.
Right.
It's about thinking critically,
Okay.
analyzing information,
Right.
and coming to your own conclusions.
That sounds good, but
Yeah.
how do we actually do that?
Well, it means changing
Yeah.
both teaching methods
Okay.
and the curriculum.
Yeah.
Teachers need the tools
Yeah.
to be able to facilitate these kinds of discussions, encourage students to challenge assumptions,
Okay.
and the curriculum itself
Yeah.
needs to expose students to different perspectives
Okay.
and encourage them to really grapple
Yeah.
with these complex issues.
That sounds like a pretty big task.
It is. It is a big undertaking. And I'm sure there will be roadblocks.
Like what?
Well, you'll have resistance
Okay.
from people who prefer the traditional way of doing things.
Yeah, more traditional education.
Right, exactly.
Like that.
And another challenge is making sure that in trying to do this,
Right.
we don't accidentally introduce
Right.
like new biases
Oh, right.
or agendas.
Yeah, we don't want to swing too far the other way.
Exactly. It's a balance.
Delicate.
It really is, but it's a balance worth striving for.
Because if we can teach students
Yeah.
how to think critically,
That gives them the power
yeah,
to navigate a complex world,
Right.
make good decisions, and contribute to a better society.
that's a great point to end on.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at some pretty strong opinions about social activism and, what it really means to make a change in the world.
Sounds intense.
Yeah, a little bit intense.
Where are we diving into?
All right, so the source material for this one is, it's a YouTube video called, the title is Woke Liberals Don't Give a Damn About Black People. And it's from a channel called Aquarius Wave. And yeah, like I said, it gets pretty heated.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. The title definitely suggests that.
But remember, we're not here to necessarily agree with everything we see and hear.
Of course. Of course.
The point is to explore the arguments, to kind of understand what people are coming from, even if we don't agree with them.
Totally. Understanding different perspectives.
Yeah.
That's what we do here.
Okay, cool. So with that in mind, let's dive in and see what this video is all about.
All right. Let's do it.
So right off the bat, the speaker kind of sets up this contrast, right? He's talking about woke liberals and how they're all talk and no action.
Yeah. He jumps right into it, doesn't he? No time wasted.
No time wasted, yeah. He's saying these activists are more worried about, like, looking good than actually getting stuff done.
So it's like more about image than substance. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. He actually uses climate change protests as an example. Like saying that activists are more likely to block traffic or, like, deface a famous painting than, actually go clean up a beach or plant some trees.
I see. So he's kind of criticizing the message, saying they're not really achieving anything, or at least not what they should be.
Yeah, and I'm curious, have you ever seen activism that felt like it was more about the show than the substance?
That's a really interesting question. It's tricky, right? Because sometimes even attention-grabbing actions can lead to real change. But there is this idea of performative activism.
Oh yeah, I've heard that term thrown around. What does that actually mean, though?
Well, it's this idea that some people are more focused on showing off their supposed virtue than actually making a difference.
Yeah. So, like, it's all about signaling that you're a good person, but not actually doing the hard work.
Yeah, exactly. It's like virtue signaling, but on a bigger, more public scale. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And social media obviously has played a huge role in this whole thing.
Makes sense. Okay, so he's definitely critical of this kind of activism, but he doesn't stop there. He actually goes on to criticize Black Lives Matter, too.
Really? Wow. Okay. What's his issue with BLM?
Well, he basically says that they're more interested in, like, money and power than actually helping Black communities. He even mentions these reports about BLM leaders using donations for personal gain.
I see. Yeah, there have been controversies and investigations into BLM finances, right? It's definitely a complex issue with a lot of different opinions out there.
Yeah, but it's clear that this speaker, he's expressing a deep distrust of the organization. Like, he doesn't believe they're actually helping the people they claim to represent.
Right. So he's questioning their motivations, their effectiveness.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got criticisms of climate activism, criticisms of Black Lives Matter, and then, get this, he shifts gears to feminism.
Oh, wow. He's covering a lot of ground here. What's his take on feminism?
Okay, so he calls modern feminism misguided, saying that, women in the West, they already hold so much power in education and in businesses. And he even brings up, the UK arresting people for posting memes as an example of this, woke dystopia where free speech is under attack. Can you believe that?
The UK meme thing. Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah.
It's definitely tied to this whole debate about online censorship,
Yeah.
How far should governments go to regulate what people say online?
Right, especially on social media. It's a huge issue, for sure.
And with feminism, it sounds like he might be aligning with critiques of what some call third wave feminism.
Third wave feminism. What does that mean?
Well, it's kind of a broad term, but it's often used to describe the feminism that's emerged, say, since the 90s. And some people argue that it's become too focused on individual experiences and identity politics,
I see. So he's saying it's lost sight of the bigger picture.
Something like that, yeah. He seems to be saying it's become less about systemic issues and more about individual grievances.
Okay, that's interesting. And the way he talks about all of this, it's pretty clear he's not just mildly disagreeing with these movements. He uses some strong language,
Oh, yeah.
Well, he actually calls woke ideology a mind virus.
A mind virus. Wow. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's a pretty striking analogy, right? He's saying it's contagious, dangerous even.
It makes you think about how language is used in these kinds of debates.
Totally.
Right.
Using words like virus or cancer to talk about ideas, that's a way of really demonizing them.
Yeah.
Making them seem like threats that need to be eliminated.
Yeah, for sure. It shuts down any possibility of having a nuanced conversation.
Exactly. So he clearly sees this woke ideology as a real problem, but then he goes even further. He starts connecting it to mental illness.
Whoa, okay. How does he make that connection?
He actually claims that liberal women have the highest rates of mental illness. And he's saying that they use their struggles, to gain social status in this, victim hierarchy.
That's getting into some really sensitive territory.
Yeah, and it's important to be careful here. We're not mental health professionals, and it's dangerous to generalize about entire groups of people.
Absolutely. Mental health is complex.
Yeah.
And it's not something to be used as a weapon in these kinds of...
Right. But it's clear that the speaker, he sees a connection between woke ideology and mental instability, and he's not afraid to say it.
Wow. Okay. So in just this first part of the video, we've got criticisms of performative activism, Black Lives Matter, modern feminism, and this idea of a woke mind virus that's somehow linked to mental health. He's covering a lot of ground.
He is, and he's doing it with a lot of passion, that's for sure. It's clear that this stuff really matters to him. And you know what? That's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're getting a glimpse into a worldview that might be very different from our own. And that's valuable, even if we don't agree with everything we hear.
Yeah, totally agree. It's about understanding, not necessarily endorsing.
Exactly. Okay, so we got a lot to unpack here. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and dive into the rest of this video.
Sounds good to me. You know what's really striking to me? It's just the level of frustration in his voice.
Yeah, definitely.
He feels betrayed by these movements, they've lost their way.
Yeah, totally. It's he had higher hopes for these causes that he used to believe in, and now he's just disillusioned.
Exactly. He seems to be saying that real activism, genuine activism, it requires more than just making noise or posting on social media.
Right. It's got to be about more than just appearances.
Yeah, it's about taking action, getting results, actually changing things, and being willing to really grapple with the complexities of these issues, not just oversimplifying everything.
Yeah, I get that. And he actually contrasts this, this idea of performative activism with his own approach.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, he talks about how he uses his platform to help good people, regardless of their race or background.
Okay.
And he emphasizes personal responsibility, taking ownership of your own life and your own actions instead of just relying on these big social movements to fix everything.
I see. So he's more about individual action than collective action.
Yeah, something like that. And this actually brings him back to the feminist movement.
Oh, okay. So how does that tie in?
Well, he talks about this disconnect, right, between the rhetoric of female oppression and the reality of women's lives in the West.
Interesting.
He even points to examples of what he considers reverse discrimination against men.
Reverse discrimination. That's a loaded term for sure.
Yeah, it is. But it shows you where he's coming from, right? He sees feminism as having gone too far in some ways. ways.
Yeah, it sounds like he feels that the focus has shifted from addressing genuine inequalities to actually creating new ones.
Right, exactly. And he doesn't shy away from controversial topics either. He actually dives into the whole issue of like transgender athletes in women's sports.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's definitely a hot button issue.
It is, and he makes it clear where he stands on it. He basically feels that it undermines, the progress that female athletes have made and raises concerns about fairness and competition.
Right. It's a complex issue with strong opinions on both sides. I mean, on the one hand, you have the argument for inclusion and trans rights. And then on the other hand, there are these concerns about biological differences and the potential impact on women's sports.
Exactly. And what's interesting is how he connects all of this, the trans athlete issue, back to this broader idea of a woke dystopia.
Right, where people are afraid to speak their minds, even if it's just through a joke or a meme, for fear of being, canceled or something.
Yeah, that's his concern. He sees this crackdown on certain types of speech as a sign of, society going too far in the name of political correctness, this fear of being punished for wrongthink, even if it's just a joke.
Yeah, the fear of being silenced.
Yeah.
It's a real thing for some people. Yeah. It ties into this whole debate about the limits of free speech online, especially in social media platforms.
Right. Where do you draw the line between protecting people from harm and allowing for open expression?
Exactly. It's a tough balance to strike.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got concerns about censorship, free speech, but then he kind of broadens his critique even more.
Oh, yeah. What else does he get into?
Well, he starts talking about this cultural shift, right? Towards celebrating mental illness and victimhood.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, he actually suggests that there's this victim hierarchy where people compete for social status based on how much they've suffered.
That's a pretty provocative claim.
It is. Yeah. And it's definitely something we need to approach with caution. While it's super important to acknowledge the real struggles that people face with mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Framing it as a competition for attention or social currency, that's really problematic.
Right. It kind of trivializes these experiences,
Exactly. And it risks perpetuating harmful stereotypes about mental illness.
Okay, so he's basically saying that people are exaggerating their problems to gain sympathy or status.
Yeah, that seems to be the gist of his argument.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he connects all of this back to that idea of the woke mind virus, right?
Right. It's all part of the same, dangerous ideology that's infecting society.
Exactly. He's trying to paint woke ideology as this threat that needs to be resisted, not just a set of ideas that we can, debate and engage with critically.
Yeah. He's definitely drawing a line in the sand. So to recap, we've got criticisms of specific movements like Black Lives Matter, feminism, and then we've got these broader concerns about free speech, censorship, the way we talk about mental health, the impact of woke culture on society as a whole. He's really not holding back.
He's not. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. It pushes us to really confront these uncomfortable questions.
Totally.
About the nature of activism, the limits of tolerance, even the potential downsides of what some people see as a well-intentioned push for social justice.
Right, because even within movements that share common goals, there can be these really deep disagreements about the best ways to achieve those goals.
Exactly. Social change is rarely simple or straightforward.
Absolutely. So how do we even begin to make sense of all of this? What are the key takeaways here? Man, we have covered some serious ground in this deep dive. Huh?
Yeah, we really have. It's been a whirlwind.
From climate protests to Black Lives Matter, feminism, free speech, even mental health. It's he sees this woke ideology as this underlying force behind it all.
Yeah, this connecting thread. And it's clear he's not a fan. But, even if we don't agree with everything he's saying, I think there's value in just hearing this perspective.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's a reminder that not everyone sees the world the same way,
Exactly. And I think that's part of what makes this deep dive so thought-provoking. It challenges us to step outside of our own echo chambers, so to speak.
Right, to consider viewpoints that might make us uncomfortable. But, okay, he's raising some pretty heavy stuff, serious concerns about activism, censorship, even the way we talk about mental health. So how do we even begin to, process all of this? Where do we even start?
Well, I think the key is to remember that this is just one person's perspective, right? It's a powerful perspective, for sure, but it doesn't necessarily represent the views of everyone who's critical of woke culture.
Right. It's important to keep that in mind.
And that's where critical thinking comes in. We can't just accept or reject everything we hear at face value, right? We need to be able to analyze the arguments, consider the evidence, and form our own conclusions. And part of that means being willing to engage with ideas that we might find uncomfortable or even offensive.
Right. Engage, but don't just blindly accept.
Exactly.